Good day, dear students, and welcome back to the English class. Now, in yesterday's recording, we looked at the first chapter under the rapid reading section, that is the four fortune seekers. And we had seen how the story is about four best friends and scholars who had run out of allowances because no patron was willing to give them any, and as a result of which they decided to leave the place Vishnupur, where they belonged, and they wanted to move out to a different land, a foreign land, to make some money out there. They felt that the people of Vishnupur did not respect their learning, and the people of Vishnupur were very silly, very foolish, because they wanted to spend money on other areas like maybe dancing. They wanted to watch vulgar dancing, they wanted wrestling, pig fighting, all these silly things they wanted to spend money on. But when it comes to really spending money on learned men like themselves, the people of Vishnupur always complained that they did not have any money with them. Okay, so these four scholars were very upset about the people, so they cursed the villagers, they cursed the place, and they said, you know what, it's best for us to just leave this place and go elsewhere. And because they are trying to do something new, as was the habit at that time, as was the practice at that time, they decided to go and visit this really old but sagacious woman, who would tell them which direction to go, where will they find their fortune. Because this woman is not an ordinary woman. She is, we are told that she is remarkably oracular. She can predict the future. She also knows the art of magic, and she has got a very strong sixth sense. So, they did a good thing by going to her. And we are told that as soon as they enter the threshold, they step on the threshold of this woman's house. Although this woman is completely deaf and blind, the woman just whispers that mere scholarship is not enough unless it is spiced with intelligence. Okay, and the thing is, at that moment when she mutters these words, she doesn't even know who these people are, because obviously she's deaf and she's blind also. She can't even hear them coming. Okay, but still she says this, and that to us as readers is some sort of a clue that maybe what she's saying is not, they're not just ordinary words which we can ignore. Maybe what she's saying may come through a little later. Okay, so that is one hint we are given about what is going to happen in the coming part of the story. Another thing we are told is these people go ahead, the four scholars and the four friends, they go ahead and they complain to the lady, and they say that we are in a very bad plight, we are in a very difficult situation, and we really wish to leave Vishnupur as soon as possible, so please guide us as to where to go. Okay, and they say that help us soon, because we are famished, we are hungry, we are running out of money, and we don't even have proper food to eat. Okay, so that's where we had stopped in the previous class. In today's class we'll take off from there. So the woman says, "Dear, dear," the old woman mumbled as she gave them food and drink. Then she said, "Believe me, my poor scholars, fortune made in a day very soon goes away. As for fate, you who are learned should know, man's efforts sufficiently great can equal the wonders of fate." Now, these are timeless lines. I mean, in this entire chapter, I think this is the most beautiful advice or saying that we have, because it's very, very deep. If you really go to see what she's trying to say, is that because the four fortune seekers were complaining about their fate, they were blaming their fate. They were saying that we are unfortunate, our fate is so bad that we have no allowance left for us. Okay, so this woman says, fortune made in a day very soon goes away. So she says, you have come to me because you want to make a fortune, you want to make money, and you want to make that money quickly. But in my experience, my words of wisdom is that if you make money soon, in a day, means we're just trying to say if you make money quickly, that money goes away very soon. Okay, but as for fate, now when we talk about fate, as you're complaining about your fate, she says, you who are learned should know, man's efforts sufficiently great can equal the wonders of fate. So she's trying to say that do not be thinking that you are trapped because of your fate. Your fate can do nothing if you continuously work hard at what you really want. Okay, so your fate does not have that much power over you. And she's saying, you, because you are learned people, you should know this. It's okay if simple uneducated people believe so much in the power of fate or destiny, okay, but you learned people should know that a man's efforts, all that he does, his choices, his actions, everything, that has a lot more significance over fate. If at all fate has power, it may have power, but this has, I mean, your own efforts also has a lot of power. Okay, so these lines, especially men's efforts sufficiently great can equal the wonders of fate. So don't rely only on fate, also have faith in your own efforts, in your own decisions and your own choices. Okay, and as learned men especially, you should know this. Okay, that fate is not the supreme what do you say, like a power over human beings. Okay, men's effort also counts, that is also equally powerful. Okay, so especially when done with great seriousness and continuously done, that perseverance, okay, then men's efforts are equal to the wonders of faith. Beautiful, beautiful lines. Okay, then we move on. It says, but as you are determined to leave Vishnupur for good means forever, I am giving you 4 magic quills, one for each. There's one thing that I did not mention at the start of today's class, but we saw this yesterday. This lady also knows the art of magic. Okay, so she says that since you guys are you really want to leave Vishnupur, you hate it out here, then I'm going to give you 4 magic quills. Quills are, you must have seen it in the past, especially people used to use quills to usually write something. It's usually the feather of a certain bird, and but these are not to be written, these are magic quills. And she gives 4 of it, one to each of the scholars. Now she says, now take the road to the northern slope of the Himalayas, and wherever a quill drops of its own accord, there its owner will surely find a treasure. Okay, so this is the trick. She says you have to take which direction? You have to go towards the northern slope of the Himalayas. So that is the direction you should go. That is the direction in which you will find fortune, your fortune. Okay, and this is the trick. Whenever the quill drops, but you should not drop it, don't hold it too lightly or anything, it should drop on its own. Okay, that's the spot you will find some treasure. So that's how you will make your fortune. You want to make a lot of money, you will be able to make it because you will find some treasure there. Okay, don't grasp the quills too hard or too lightly. Bear in mind, dear sons, my final warning. So this is the only thing she says, don't hold it too hard or too lightly. So it should not fall because you're not holding it properly. It should fall on its own. That's when you will really find the treasure spot. But she says, one final warning. And please pay attention to this word here. It is not advice. She says, my final warning, and my final. So this is the last thing I need to tell you, but it is a warning, not an advice. Like all the other things she has said before, there are some words of wisdom, something about advice, but no warnings. But this one is a warning. And let's look at what the warning is. It says, venture far, but not too far. Be bold, but not too bold, lest, like the ignorant beggar, you taste both fire and cold. Okay, we don't know why she's saying this, but if you just look at the words, she's trying to say venture far means go far, take risks, but don't go too far, don't take too many risks. Be bold, but not too bold, same thing. Okay, be courageous, go out there, put yourself out there, but not too bold, lest, like the ignorant beggar, you taste both fire and cold. Because if you do that, lest is a very old word, but it simply means that if you do that, you, like the ignorant beggar, will taste both fire and cold. Now this bit is a little obscure. We can't understand, what is this? Who is this ignorant beggar, and what is the meaning of tasting both fire and cold? Okay, and whatever it is, but the first 2 lines are very clear, last 2 lines are not very clear, but still one thing we know is that she says, this is my final warning. Now the 4 scholars did as they were told. Okay, so did as they were told, that means they take the quill and they go towards the direction that the old lady told them to go. Okay, now if it was any of us, I think we would have turned back and asked the woman, what is the meaning of this ignorant beggar, and what's the meaning of tasting fire and cold? Okay, but for some reason these 4 scholars did not ask the woman, what is the meaning of the last 2 lines here? They just take the quills and they go because they really are excited to get their fortune. And they know that this woman, whatever she says, it will definitely happen. Okay? Anyway, so they ignore the warning and they go. Then they had not gone far when the leader's quill dropped, and when the spot was examined, it was found to be all copper. Here's wealth enough for all of us, he cried. What's the use of venturing further? Now, at least he has some sense. He says the quill dropped, the first, the leader of the four of them, his quill drops, and they find that in that very spot there is a lot of copper, and there's so much of copper that if they remove all of the copper from there and they sell it, they'll make enough of money for all four of them. Okay, so he says there's no point of risking going further. There's no need to go any further. Venture means again go further, but he says there's no need. So, don't be silly, said the others. A copper mine isn't worth much. Let's go farther and see what happens. We have hardly started on our journey. Perhaps you held your quill lightly. Naturally, it dropped. Okay. Now, of course, the others are not too happy with copper because there are still 3 more quills. And if on the first drop they have found copper, that means it will keep getting better than this. Okay. So, they are greedy. They are not happy with what they've just got, and of course nobody values copper that much. That is also there. Okay, so they said, maybe it's your fault. Maybe you did not hold the quill tightly the way you're supposed to hold. Maybe you kept it too lightly in your hand, and that's the reason why it fell. Actually, that excuse can just not be true, because if he had to hold the quill lightly, and which is why it fell, then they would never be able to find the treasure. The treasure would only be found in spots where the quill fell of its own accord. So this excuse actually doesn't make any sense at all, but still they are so greedy that they don't think about it. They just say, it's your mistake. Maybe you didn't hold the quill properly, and that's why it fell. Okay. Then, in that case, the leader said, you may go on, but I will stay here and wait till you come back to fetch me. So he says, okay, the best thing to do is I will stay back and I will guard the mine, because this is my quill, it fell here, so this is sort of my treasure. If you guys really want to go ahead, you go ahead, and if you find anything, you can come back and fetch me, you can get me, and then of course we can share whatever treasure it is that you guys get. But right now, let me just guard this treasure because my quill fell right here. Okay. That is what he says. Then we say, or rather then it said here. So the 3 scholars went on. Soon afterwards, the second scholar's quill dropped to the ground, and he said, let us stop here. The soil of this spot is, I find, all silver. Take, my friends, as much silver as you will, and fetch our poor comrade, who is sitting on a heap of paltry copper. Okay, so the second friend, again, as they continue moving on, his quill falls, and this time they find silver. Okay, and then of course he says, we found better than copper, so go ahead and bring our other friend, the first friend, the first scholar, bring him here because I have better than him. So let's all share this treasure that we have, that is silver, because silver is obviously better than copper. Paltry copper simply means, paltry means something that is very low, very ordinary, very inferior. So obviously compared to silver, copper is paltry. Then, you are just as foolish as he, exclaimed the other 2. A silver mine cannot be called a real treasure. We must venture farther to find something better. So, the other 2 are not happy at all, because of course they are doing the math here. They are trying to say, array, the first shot we found copper, the second shot we found silver. That means by the third shot we'll find gold, and by the fourth shot we might find diamonds. It will just get better and better. So we should just not stop. Why give up so soon when we can have better than this? Okay, one thing you will notice is that this is exactly what it means to venture far and too far. The woman had warned them, the wise old woman had warned them, venture far but not too far. So somewhere here, from the silver mine onwards, they tend to venture too far, because silver is actually good enough. They could have stopped with it because it's free. It's not like they've earned it. It's like a gift given to them. It's magic here. They can just take that and enjoy their lives, but they're not happy. They just want more and more. So they are willing to venture far because, or rather, they are willing to venture farther because of their greed. Okay, it's their greed that is pulling them in the direction forward. Okay, so they are going against the warning of the wise old woman. That is what we need to remember. And let's see what happens, because Everything that she says is important. That is what we need to know. Then it says, well, said the second scholar, I'm going to stay here. So he says, you know what, you guys go ahead. I will guard this particular spot. Now, the third scholar found in the same way a mine of gold nuggets, and there he stopped, while the fourth one went farther on, hugging his quill and saying to himself, surely I shall hit upon a mine of gems. A tiny gem is worth a ton of gold. Now, this is, interesting. The third friend, he finds gold nuggets. Nuggets means like like this small sort of a mold, a small sort of like a lump of gold. Okay, and lots of it. Okay, he's got a mine of it. You can imagine quite a bit, and gold. So it's very, very precious. He'll get a lot of money out of it. Right now, they could have at least stopped here, because gold is, you can't say that gold is ordinary. It's not copper, it's not even silver, it's gold, right? But the fourth friend says no. If this third friend got gold, that means the next thing that is there, what is better than gold, is probably diamonds, and I will get diamonds. And even if I can get one gem or one diamond, that is a lot more precious than gold. Okay, so he says, I'll definitely go further and I'll try to find out what I get, because it is going to get better than this. It's always getting better than the previous one. So if now we got gold, I'm definitely getting gems or diamonds and the next stop. Okay, then we are told that the fourth scholar, the last scholar, he pressed onward all alone till he reached the regions covered with perpetual snow. So remember, they were moving towards the Himalayas. So he's finally walked so much that he has reached one area that is covered entirely with snow all throughout the year. So it's a very cold region that he has reached. There by day it was burning hot, and at night it was freezing cold. If you are paying attention, you will understand what is happening here. During the day it was burning hot, and at night it was freezing cold. I'll give you a hint. There is something that was said by the old woman which is resembling this condition here. Okay, but just remember, by day it is really, really hot, burning hot, and by night it's just the opposite. It is freezing cold. Going still farther, he found on a plateau covered going still farther, he found on a plateau covered with solid ice a man crying in agony as blood dripped down his body. For a toothed iron discus was whirling round his head, sawing through the bones of his skull. Now, this is a very, very painful and unpleasant sight. So, in that cold region, because it is very cold at the time that he reaches there, it's covered with snow. Okay, he finds this. There is a plateau. Plateau is like a flat land, but it still has a height. That's a plateau. So there is a heightened piece of land, but it is flat. Okay, and there on that flat surface, he finds this man sitting down. Okay, and it's not that he's just sitting down. He's got blood dripping down on his body. It's just falling down on his body. Why? Because there is a toothed iron discus. So a discus is like a flat plate, but this one has it has these edges, the sharp edges here, and it could be inner circle edges or the outer circle edges. It could be something like this. The discus could have edges around it, or it could even be in this inner circle that they can have the edges. It's not very clear, but we are just told that this discus, this flat sort of a surface, is whirling around his head. Whirling is moving round and round. Okay, his head, sawing through the bones of his skull. So it's cutting through the bones of his skull. So it's in his head. Okay, it's going around his head, and it is cutting through the bones of his head, especially the skull. So it's a very painful sight, and I really cannot understand how he's still alive. But he's, the fact that he's alive, he's in excruciating pain. Okay, and yes, it said here it was a most painful sight. The scholar hastened to this man and said, "What's the meaning, sir, of the ordeal you are suffering? Is there anything I can do for you? But first tell me." So he's like, what is going on here? How come you are sitting down here in this cold? And what is this? How did you ever manage to get a discus on your head? And that too, and how are you alive? And first of all, he's trying to say, ordeal is actually the you can say the trauma or the very difficult in this case, it is just the pain of the entire discus sawing through his skull. Okay, ordeal is a very difficult situation. Okay, so sir, what is the meaning of the ordeal you are suffering, and is there anything I can do for you? But first tell me, so tell me, what is going on here? Why are you sitting down here all alone, and how do you have this discuss all around your head? At this, the man started laughing. Now, this is the man who was sitting down there, who was going through all that pain of just a minute ago. So at this, the man started laughing, while the toothed iron discuss left his head to settle on the scholars. You saw what happened? The minute he asked the question, the iron discuss left the head of the original person, and it now goes on the head of the fourth scholar who had that quill. Now, he said mockingly, now you know the answer. Once I came here, dear scholar, with a quill in my hand, and found another man in this very plight. And the moment I asked him what he was doing in this God-forsaken place, his disgust settled on my head. You wait here till another quill-carrying fortune seeker turns up. So, if you understand what's going on here, this is the punishment you get for venturing too far, like the old woman had warned. She had clearly said, venture far, but not too far, be bold, but not too bold, lest like the ignorant beggar, lest like the ignorant beggar, you taste both fire and cold. What they're trying to say is that there was an ignorant beggar, and by beggar, I don't really mean a real beggar that we talk about today, but a beggar is just someone in search of fortunes because he has lost all of his money. Like these cases, in this case, the scholars are as good as beggars. Okay, and they're ignorant because they are not wise. Okay, if they were wise, they would have made better decisions. But they are ignorant and they are foolish. They are unaware of what to do and what's the best thing to be done. Okay. So lest like the ignorant beggar, you taste both fire and cold. And you taste both fire and cold because in this place we are told that it is extremely hot during the day. It's like burning hot during the day, and it is freezing cold during the night. So she had warned them exactly what is going to happen, because if you venture too far, you will end up on that plateau with that disgust over your head. And I had told you, the scholar should have turned around and asked her, what is the meaning of that entire saying? What is the meaning of these last two lines? But they were overconfident and they were too greedy and too excited to find their fortune. So they ignored the warning given by the old woman. Okay, so this is exactly what had happened. So there were instances where somebody else made that mistake and they landed on that plateau. And ever since then, somebody or the other that she gives this quills to, somebody or the other ends up in that same place because they are ignorant. Okay, so that's what it's said here. Then, but the fourth scholar cried, my pain is excruciating. I can't bear it long. I'm going to die soon. So this is another thing. And of course, if it was a real story, he would have been dead. In fact, the other one would have also been dead. There's no way that they could have survived because this is on the head. Okay. So he says, this disgust is on my head. I'm going to definitely die because the pain is too much. I can't even bear it. It's excruciating. Okay. So he says, I'm going to die really soon. This is the punishment I get for not really listening to the lady. So the other man who was sitting down there previously, that man says, don't worry, the other replied, you won't die so easily. Whom the gods punish do not die before the appointed hour. So this is where it's a folk story. So we are told that he will not die, although logically you should have died. Immediately you should have died. But we are told that whom the gods punish do not die before the appointed hour. So this is more like God punishing you because you were too greedy and you ventured too far and you got too bold. So God is punishing you with the toothed iron disgust. It's nobody else. Okay, so since God is punishing you, you will not die unless God really wants you to die. Okay, so don't worry, you will very much be alive even though you are going through excruciating pain. So then he says, now farewell, so I'm going, goodbye. On my way home, I shall not fail to give your news to your 3 friends. So he knows that this is exactly what happened to him. There were 4 friends. The 4th friend reached this 4th position. So he knows that there are 3 other friends that this scholar also has. So he says, when I'm going down this hill, I will inform your other 3 friends as to what has happened to you. So don't worry, he says. Now the next paragraph we have. Now these friends of his, having waited for him for a long while, were already on their way to the high plateau of the Himalayas when they met the man lately freed from the torture of the toothed discus. Now here is another twist in the story. We notice that like the 4th scholar, the other 3 scholars were also eager and greedy for more wealth. Okay, so although they had found their treasures, they still wanted the best. They still wanted what the other scholar would have found. Okay, so all of them had pinned their hopes on the 4th scholar because all of them felt that the 4th scholar will get the best one. If the 3rd scholar got nuggets, then they also thought that the 4th scholar should get some sort of gems, some diamonds or something like that, which is much more precious than all the other metals. Okay, so what they do is that they leave their spots and they continue going to the 4th scholar because they want to share in the wealth of the 4th scholar. Okay, so they're moving, they're walking towards that plateau where the 4th scholar is stuck now. Okay, and then that's when they meet this man, the same man who is now freed. They meet him, and this man, we are told they heard everything from him. So this man who is coming down the hill, he tells them the entire story. Then this man says, as you are not carrying any quills, they were told, you cannot be of any service to your friend. Therefore, you would do well to share out the wealth of your mines of copper, silver, and gold. Make the most of your fortune. So he says, there is no point in going any further because you cannot help your friend in any way because you don't have a quill. If your friend is going to be saved, somebody else needs to come with a quill and go and save him. Okay, so he says you all better go back and you go and you must have gotten a copper mine, somebody must have gotten a silver mine, and the 3rd fellow must have gotten a gold mine. So you all take all that treasure and you make your money and you live. You have to forget him. Okay, then we are told, but they stammered, we have not marked the sites of the mines. How shall we ever find them again? So they said, you know what, the problem is we did not keep any sort of marking because there was a certain spot where the treasure was. Okay, and only that spot was the exact spot where the quill fell. Okay, so here they're telling him that we have not marked it. So there's no way that we can go and find because there's so much of land, but there was an exact spot where the treasure was. So there's no way we can go and find that spot again. So then the man says, he says, that's the question. Like me, you did not let the wise old woman of Vishnupur finish her story of the foolish beggar who tasted both fire and cold by venturing too far and being overbold. So he says, that is the problem. You all made the same mistake that I made and my friends made. That is, we did not ask the woman to tell us why is she warning us not to venture too far and what is the story of that old beggar or that ignorant beggar who tasted both fire and cold. Because if she had to tell you the story, or rather if you had to ask her for the story and she would definitely tell you the story, you would not make the same mistake that y'all have made so far. So now, because it's not just the 4th scholar who was overbold or who ventured too far, it's also the other 3 scholars because they were not happy with what they got. That is why they continued moving higher up and they all moved to the direction of the 4th scholar. So like the 4th scholar, the other 3 scholars are also greedy and they are also wanting something more. They're not happy with what they are given. Okay, so because of that, because of the tendency of going too far, venturing too far and being overbold, they too are left with nothing. So the end, and then again, don't forget that one saying, or that the muttering, I can say, that the old woman comes up with as soon as the 4 scholars enter her threshold. She says that mere scholarship is lesser than sense unless spiced with intelligence. Okay, and this is clearly this. Now we are told that these are not ordinary people. They are scholars. They are learned men, and they've spent like 24 years and more just learning. So they may be scholars in their own areas, but they are not intelligent men at all. They are very, very ignorant. They are very, very foolish. Okay, so that is what she says. The moral of the story is that, first of all, your learning is not equal to intelligence. And secondly, if you, another thing which is very important, she says it earlier, not here. She says, the old woman says, that man's efforts sufficiently great can equal the wonders of faith. That is the second lesson. Another thing that she says is that yeah, this part here where she says that you should be bold but not too bold. You should venture but not venture too far. Okay, so these are you can say the golden words that the story leaves us with. There are so many things that we learn from the story, and we understand that true wisdom is knowing how far to go and where to stop, and true wisdom is also understanding that you can't blame your fate all the time, that if you are ready to work hard, and persevere in your efforts, you can equal the wonders of fate. Okay, so the story stops right here, and of course we have many different lessons that we have learned from the story, and you can let me know which is your favorite lesson and what did you really, I mean, especially if there's something else that you have learned from the story, you are free to share it with me, and we can have a discussion on this. So we will stop right here for the class because